Okay, sex ed versus sexuality education. It can be easy to confuse them, right?
These days it can be, but it seems very odd for people of our generation to even think that that's a thing.
Well, you wouldn't know because in Form 2, when you got it, when it was called that, it was a very, very different beast.
Yes. And we lived in a world where there were males and there were females.
Indeed. You heard recently that De Niro's child has transitioned, Robert De Niro.
Oh, well, no, I hadn't heard that, but I know that many of them are trying to do that or announcing that that is what's happening over there, like it's a thing that can happen.
Funny, the last time I really paid any attention to Robert De Niro news, he was putting out a film about autism and vaccinations, and that got totally shut down. This is going back a few years ago. I'm not saying there's any link, but I've actually got a clip here from Tyler Fisher, the comedian. Do you want to see it? It's really funny.
Yeah, let's go. Let's have a look.
Check this out.
Okay, so I don't know if you heard, but my friend just said, oh, so hey, Robert De Niro's daughter came out as trans. And I said, oh, so she's going to be a boy. And he was like, no, that's transphobic. She came out as trans. And I said, well, if she's coming out as trans, then she's turning into a boy. He's like, no, dude. He goes, you're being really, really offensive right now. He goes, it was a he and is now a she. And I go, well, wait a minute. So he becoming a she isn't transphobic? He's like, no, he transitioned to a girl. I was like, so he's a girl? He's like, no, she was always a girl. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. So if she was always a girl and was born a girl and felt like a girl, then you can't transition into a girl. You're just a girl. You're a girl transitioning into a girl. And he's like, no, you're being really offensive. I was like, no, you're being retarded. And now I feel fucking insane, and we've gotten nowhere. And so that's why Trump won.
Sorry, I had to. Let's get on with the show.
It's insane what's going on, and it's really insane how the media is spinning the fact that Trump's insane when actually some of the stuff that he's doing, and we've talked about it in a previous clip, is actually not insanity, but it's getting treated as such through the media and through politicians. It's very odd. So I love that there's comedians out there just making light of it and trying to I think comedy is the way to cut through the stupidity.
Yeah, it's a great way to navigate through any of this stuff. You might as well be light with it because the people on the other side of the fence are so serious.
They really are. I mean, it's this whole you're either the oppressed or the oppressor. That's where they've come to, which is a political playbook, right? And it's like most of us were just happily living our lives and the stuff smacked us in the head and we haven't been allowed to talk about it without being called the oppressor. So, well, obviously people know that we do. But, so I just want to go back to this conversation about is it sex ed or sexuality ed? And the reason that this is important to not forget about right now is we've got the consultation on the new draft framework for the Relationship and Sexuality Education that closes on Friday, May the 9th, which is only a few days away. And what I'm just going to show a bit is the kinds of people that are behind lobbying for there to be stuff in the sexuality education around there being lots of different genders, but also questions around consent being taught to children and things like that a lot of parents that are just busy living their lives wouldn't really think that this is real or happening.
Well, that's the way life is at the moment. We're so busy living our lives that topics like this can only be handled by someone like yourself that really sits down and focuses on it. And when parents find out, I think they're often, shocked.
Yeah, shocked. And even people that we talk to, a lot of them don't really want to stand on a soapbox about it until it's happening to them. And we want to stop it from happening. So, I mean, thankfully now with us on YouTube, people can sit in the comfort of their own homes and find out about it and go down their own research routes if they want to. On Easter Monday, I was actually on air on One News and was invited to have a say on the Relationship and Sexuality Education draft framework, which was really unexpected. And also what happens when they pre-record that is I've no idea who else is going to be on the news bite with me.
Ooh,
and how much or little they show of what I actually said. So I've actually got I recorded the full conversation, which was about 11 minutes long, with Kate Nicol-Williams from One News. And that's available on my YouTube channel, Penny Marie NZ.
Okay, cool.
But what we're just going to watch is what actually aired on Easter. I think it might have actually been Easter Sunday, not Monday, and with the other people. And then we're just going to have a look at who these other people are and what they're involved in, because that's not obviously what they include in the news. And sort of why do these people get on the news talking about what they do? And very little do parents get their point of view on air. I was fortunate enough to get asked to be on air and hopefully represented some of the common sense parents out there. Hopefully I did a good job of that. So let's watch it. Yeah.
Have a look.
Feedback is being sought on the Education Ministry's new proposal for teaching relationships and sexuality in schools. It comes after previous guidelines were removed as part of the government's coalition agreement, and the new framework is already generating plenty of debate. Kate Nicol-Williams has more.
Recent decades have seen growing recognition of the rainbow community. But gender diversity is increasingly controversial in relationships and sexuality education in schools. The latest Education Ministry proposal, a dangerous step backwards, according to one advocate.
We're incredibly disappointed to see the new framework completely erasing any mentions of gender diversity. We think that's incredibly harmful for trans young people.
The draft framework covers relationships, safety and consent, and pubertal change and sexual health, different sexual orientations and the term intersex feature, but transgender and other terms from the 2020 guidelines are not included.
It's incredibly frustrating to see a vulnerable group of young people's lives kind of being politicised in this way, just based on the coalition agreement.
But the Education Minister thinks it's a good document. She's proud of the year-by-year consent guidance.
Is it okay if someone wants to share my bike? Should they have to ask? How should I respond? And it builds it all the way through to talking about consent, in a sexual term.
One researcher says the scope is too narrow for helping students navigate relationships. She also teaches and says the message from her students is clear.
We're not actually learning anything about how to have positive sexual relationships. So how are we supposed to know that? The only way we can find out actually what to do involves going to look at pornography online.
Let Kids Be Kids group says the framework is a step in the right direction with reduced emphasis on gender diversity. But the group disagrees with some parts, like 12 to 13-year-olds learning about healthy sexual activity and the legal age of consent.
The way they're teaching about consent is potentially opening the door for children to be burdened with the decision of consent at an age before it's even legally consent.
The Minister wants to hear from the education sector. Consultation runs until May 9th. Kate Nicol-Williams, One News.
Yeah, so what did you think of that, Stephen?
Well, it was really interesting. It was a fairly balanced article, at least it would seem to be on the surface. And I was thinking, they seem to have both sides of the story covered, and that surprised me. I don't know if that did for you. But.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was pleased that I got any airtime at all. I knew what they were trying to clip, and I'm up against people who are thinking that parents aren't qualified to have these conversations. Right? The lady, Tracy, which we'll look at in a minute, I didn't know how it was going to go and compared to what else that they were going to have talking about on there. So I'm pleased that I got something across on behalf of parents. That's what's really lacking at the moment. And when they talk about it being a really controversial topic, well, the Ministry of Education and all their lobbyists have put in stuff that has become controversial as parents have looked at it and some teachers have looked at it. My concern is the way that Tracy Cleland portrays that all children are gagging for this stuff. And she's the university, the research expert on it. And so my question, and we've questioned it before, is what the quality of the research that they're putting out, and are they biased or unbiased in what they're trying to achieve with their research? So the next thing is, and Annie just found this actually, was the written article that came up on One News about the video that we just saw.
Right.
And, it's funny. This is their image that they choose is, trans Lego or pride Lego. So they're putting subliminal messages in here about being pro-pride. The other thing that really irked me actually about that news clip was that they did that promotion at the start about the pride parades and things like that. Like they're trying to change what normal society is, where the majority of people don't attend that, wouldn't want to go. It's kind of creating celebrity status around everything to do with pride. They've gone too far to their narrative of that they're a marginalised, stigmatised group, and now all hail them all the time, everywhere, and if you aren't one of their allies, then you're part of the problem, which is what we're battling, right? So when you see that the mainstream media then sort of shows that, but yeah, it's talking about Inside Out's managing director, Tabby Beasley, who we're going to have a look at, and she gets quite a bit of airtime on how disappointed the LGBT community are, or the trans community, actually, not even LGBT, because it's not
she's
the
really
lesbian.
talking about the trans community, right?
Which is
not
really,
so much the LG or the B.
Well, no, because they don't usually want to be a part of this trans stuff, so let's just call it trans or rainbow, because it's not lesbians and gays by and large that are wanting this.
Are they conflating or confusing the agenda there for trans stuff with LGB? Because when it was boobs on bikes, there was not so much of the T portion.
I believe that they are, because
so it's
their
just
narrative
sort of convenient B-roll.
Well, their narrative is that if you question them, you're a homophobic.
Right.
But gay and lesbian people are questioning them. Does that make them homophobic?
Yeah, clearly it makes the gays homophobic. I take issue with the trans portion insofar as it affects children.
Yeah.
And what they seem to do is normalise all of the stuff out there in society, and a rainbow crossing and boobs on bikes and all the stuff for L's and G's and B's, and go, yeah, that's part of us, the T's. And I'm like, well, okay, maybe, but maybe not. But if so, can you just stop on the agenda stuff on kids?
It's just so full on. And I mean, that's what I focus on, is just helping parents to see what it is, because it's harming children. But it is actually harming adults as well, because they're getting it pushed through workplaces whether they want it or not. The L and G communities are not being represented or being misrepresented in here. So it does impact on adults. Ratepayers it impacts on, because they don't want to be funding rainbow crossings and rainbow training of council staff and, pride events, funded through ratepayers. So it does affect adults. I mean, like, she talks about not erasing trans people from public life. You can't erase trans people from public life, So remembering that this conversation was actually about sex ed.
That's right. And to not confuse that, because sexuality education is actually what's going on. And it should be sex ed only.
Well, yeah, and I mean, they're actively going beyond education and now saying, well, you're trying to erase us. So it's become a political activism thing that they've picked up on, going, well, you're trying to erase us, like what Ben Doyle does. What does he say? I can't be...
I will not be erased or something.
Yeah, I will not be. And so it's like, well, no, this is a conversation about what's going on in the education system.
Yeah.
Let's stick to that. The other ones that are conflating it much bigger and saying, we're all being erased. No, we're disagreeing on whether children who don't identify as trans need to be taught it at all.
Yeah, I agree. Well, show me what the next thing is you've got there.
I want to just have a look at who Tabby Beasley is. So she was the purple-haired girl that was in the news report, okay?
She's from Inside Out?
She's from an organisation called Inside Out, and she has a big list of credentials.
Okay.
She basically was, she led a group at Nayland College in Nelson, and I think it was around 2012, and she was running the Queer Straight Alliance group.
Okay.
Fast forward to 2012, she formed Inside Out, and fast forward to 2015, and she got to meet the Queen and was given an award. So let's just listen to a little bit of this. This is from 2015 on TVNZ.
Okay.
Hi again. Tabby Beasley is the kind of woman who stands out in a crowd. She's got bright purple hair, a facial piercing, and has a unique knack for drawing attention to her life's work, making New Zealand a better place for young people in the queer community. Now she's caught the attention of the Queen. Tabby's the first Kiwi to win a special award at Buckingham Palace for her extraordinary leadership. Here's Libby Middlebrook.
On a sunny day in the capital, they're out to celebrate pride and progress.
I never thought that I would see a day when we could come together as a community and share our fabulousness and being loved for it, I think.
But in truth, away from the crowds and colour, the world can still be a cruel place.
I've heard some really horrible stories. A young person in a rural area who had urine thrown at him at school. The bullying is pretty shocking.
Did anything like that ever happen to you?
A little bit, yeah. I remember getting a pear thrown at me and being called a gay emo and things like that.
Tabby Beasley has always had a fierce sense of self.
I don't really care, I guess, what other people think of me so much.
A bright young leader in the queer community, just 23.
We need people like you.
Who's winning extraordinary recognition overseas for her work and her leadership.
Tabitha Beasley from New Zealand.
How do you feel about meeting the Queen? Tabby's the founder of Inside Out, an organisation working to support lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender youth.
The rates of kind of suicide and depression for young people in our community are like really, really high. And that, I think, is all a really big result of that bullying and discrimination in school.
So I'm just going to pause it there because don't need to watch any more of that. And I'm sorry for the audio. It's a bit tinny because this was recorded 10 years ago. So she was a young girl that started a Queer Straight Alliance and then started a group called Inside Out and was working on behalf of a marginalised group. And lo and behold, she got to go and get a medal with the Queen. No one else in New Zealand has
rough
ever.
What she went through in that article, having urine thrown at you and all that sort of stuff. I'm sad to hear that.
Well, she didn't have urine thrown at her. She just had someone call her a name because she was
gay emo or something.
Yeah,
I thought she said at the start of it she had
someone else. She said she'd heard a story that someone else had that happen.
Oh, okay.
So they were
anyway.
playing,
The thing I'm getting at is that's not cool. No one wants that. No one wants anyone going through that. But that doesn't necessarily justify a sob story to then attract millions of dollars in funding.
Well, it doesn't justify her work. Is she really making enough of a difference to be acknowledged internationally by the royals?
Yeah.
Seems like some sort of club. And millions of dollars over years, and we're going to look at one of the latest annual reports on that and sort of go and look at the number of staff they've got working for them and really sort of get people thinking about, is this about the small marginalised, stigmatised minority group that they're trying to represent? Are they trying to create social change to have to agree with and support and encourage and love people who identify that way? Because it's different, but there's a big spectrum between being kind to them or acknowledging them or even agreeing that it's real and having them have all the money, all the funding, all the accolades. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and pushing puberty-blocking drugs on kids.
Yeah. And so then you go...
convinced they have something wrong with it.
Well, so then you go, why has she got such a voice inside the Ministry of Education when it's meant to be sex ed or is it sexuality ed? And I just want to I've got a bunch of resources here that Inside Out have created. They get government money, obviously, to create resources and things like that. So that's just one of them, which is making schools safer. So it's playing the whole we're not treated very well, therefore the schools have to be made safer in order for us to be okay. Well, every parent who's got a kid in school knows that most kids get bullied at some point in their life for whatever it is that they're being, whether they're too nerdy or whether they have glasses or braces or acne or whether they've got purple hair or whatever it is, right? So why is this group getting all the government funding for their so-called being bullied? And that's what Pink Shirt Day and Pink Shirt Week and Pride Week, that's all about, anti-bullying of this group mainly, not of other groups that are getting bullied. And we hear reports all the time that kids are getting bullied in school. The whole school education system is living off a bullying mentality, not only from other kids but from teachers as well. So why is this group getting all the money? Are they getting more bullied than everybody else? Why are they getting all of the research done on them? But what I want to show in this book is that...
Oh, let's get a close-up on that.
The Ministry of Education logo is in there. Like, they're not separate.
Well, that says endorsed by, doesn't it, really?
Yeah. It
says
produced by? Produced with support from the Ministry of Education.
Okay.
So when you go back to the RSE consultation and the different groups who are getting their time to get their feedback, and when they get on the mainstream media, this group's already got a leg up. It's actually already connected to the Ministry of Education.
Yeah, they're all well networked into the right places.
The Ministry of Education refers to their resources, refers to their website as a place to go for help. Not parents, don't go to parents for help, go to this group. Right? It's totally blown out of proportion, and there's a lot about Tabby Beasley that concerns me. she was standing beside Benjamin Doyle when Benjamin Doyle did his press release and the press conference in the Rainbow Room the other day.
Wow.
She has been put into this position. So some of the things that she regards as her achievements, and parents will understand what I'm talking about here. So she's responsible for gender fluid uniforms.
Really?
Yeah. So her lobbying is responsible for unisex toilets and gender neutral toilets in schools. Now, all of this stuff costs schools money.
Yeah.
I've been on a school board when we've gone through that. It costs money, it costs time, it costs energy. And you might have one child at the school who's identifying differently and an inordinate amount of influence they have. So they talk about being kind to everybody and not being discriminatory, but they're highly discriminatory because they're not giving any space at all for heterosexual kids to just be heterosexual. They're actually going in and trying to create more people like them.
Right.
And I want to show you what I mean by that. So this is one of their documents, and it's called a Gender Transition Support Plan Template, and it's what a counsellor or someone who's running a Queer Straight Alliance or a teacher in a school could access. It's a resource for them. So it's when a child begins transitioning, schools may consider working in partnership with the student and their parents and whānau to create a support plan. This plan covers aspects of a child's gender transition, such as names, pronouns, identifying trusted adults at school, so not parents, locating safe access to appropriate toilets or changing facilities. So the student then puts their details in, puts their pronouns in, and they identify who's in their team to support them, so they're creating a support network. Are students' caregivers aware of the child's transition, yes or no? So there's an opportunity for the child to say, nope, I don't want my mum and dad to know that I am transitioning. And are they supportive? So they get to say whether mum and dad likes what they're doing or not. Now, this is a massive problem because once a child starts going on this route, the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education, their standard of care is to affirm that they're born in the wrong body and that they want to change them. So this is being done this could be being done at school. It is being done at school because we get told this. But this document is from inside out. So this
is where you get that scalpel of separating the parents from the kids, starting at the school system.
100%.
Right.
Yeah. So I really just want to show that these are the kinds of resources that Inside Out has. So they're creating this platform, this system, really, this process for the child to transition at school. Okay, which again, is this sex education or is it sexuality education?
Yeah.
Right? Because now they're just saying, well, you might be not born in the right body and you might be wanting to transition, and then do you want mum to know, and we'll support you, and we've got all these agencies like Rainbow Youth and Inside Out that will love bomb you. They love bomb them, right?
Yeah, that's a technique. That's a known psychological technique to make people vulnerable to then what happens to them. It's really interesting too, because at this point, parents who are not so engaged are thinking, this is sex ed, they just go through sex ed, and then wonder why they get some of these odd and strange changes coming back home.
Yeah.
When what's happening to their child is not even being disclosed to them, because that article that you just showed said we must consider this if their parents or their caregivers know, in terms of how we communicate with them in the future. And this is that first moment where you thought it was sex ed. It's not.
Yeah, it's destabilizing children's identities through the funnel of school. And that's why I keep banging on about it, because most parents unfortunately don't know until their child comes home and says, I'm a pansexual, demisexual, transmasculine, whatever word that they've never heard before, because they didn't exist before, because it's a made up thing.
A little bit like the cisgender thing, cis male and so on.
They're all their made up words, right? Yeah. So I just want to show...
Shakespearean, isn't it?
Yeah, but at least that was fiction. Like, this is actually what's going on out there. I just want to show the Inside Out website just to show a couple of things around, and you'll see that's Tabby there. You'll see that drag queens are popping up everywhere, and you saw them in the previous clips. You know, we've been raising the alarm bell like others on drag queens presenting to children when they actually were always adult entertainers. Inside Out is an organisation specifically for dealing with children in school. So we're definitely talking about minors here.
Mm-hmm.
So, their mission is to make Aotearoa safer for all rainbow and Takatapui people. So Takatapui is Māori non-binary people, so specific to Māori.
Mm-hmm.
We provide resources, workshops, consulting, advocacy and support for anything concerning them. So they're saying they're only here for this small group of the community. But they're wanting to have a say on how the entire sex ed curriculum is rolled out for everybody, right? So they're wanting to take their tiny thing out to everybody. They've already done it. It's already been what's in. But this is the difference between, are you really here for a minority group, like the knitting club and you're just dealing with knitters, or are you trying to get other people to think that they're part of you when they would never were, wouldn't have ever thought about it if you just left them alone and not shown them that stuff. So I would recommend for people to go and have a look at the Inside Out website. They've actually taken their staff details off the website, which is interesting. They just really have full...
It's quite well funded, right?
It's really well funded.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, I think, the next thing I'm going to show you. So I'm just going to flick to the Inside Out's 2023 annual report. And I just want to show a couple of different things here. The first thing I want to show you is how many people this organisation have working for them. So if they were representing a small marginalised group and they weren't trying to grow their tribe, why have they got so many people working for them? So I mentioned this in the roadshow last year. I worked for a national brand once and there were 6 of us in the head office for the whole country for the brand, and the amount of people that are being staffed by this industry, when I call it in rainbow industry, is unbelievable. They're not producing things, goods or services. They're not contributing to our national GDP. They're literally creating victims and oppressed people who are the only thing they're going to do is clog up the mental health system and the health system.
They're masters of grant funding applications, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So these are the national team. This is in 2023, so this is a little bit older now. But these are all their school coordinators. These are the people that go into schools and actually teach their programs to the students. Then they've got a board of trustees. Then they've got a whole list of volunteers as well. Like it's a massive industry that they've got. And if you take a close look, you really need to decide whether these are the kinds of people that you want around your children. I'm just going to flick down. So there's Tabby there. She's the managing director. So they seem just very self-focused. So they're all about them and themselves, and it's concerning. That's Elizabeth Caddy. So she's advisor to the Green Party, very connected in government. She's
that was the one in the middle there, that older lady.
The one in the middle in the purple there.
Right.
Yep. She is part of, I think it's Waikato University. It could be Victoria, but she's involved with all the university courses around all the gender stuff. They're all scratching each other's backs here. So they also have a campaign that's, I think it's in June every year, called Out on the Shelves.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where they put and promote rainbow or trans books in school libraries, and they even run competitions where school libraries can have a competition to see who can have the pride-friendly or loudest display. I mean, it's unbelievable, all the promotion that they do.
Right.
But these are the ones, so it's Inside Out that is doing that. They spend money on making all of these bookmarks that people find all over the place and in the local community libraries at that time of the year.
Right.
And on these has all the different gender identities. Got asexual, transsexual, lesbian, bisexual, aromantic.
What is aromantic?
Intersection. I don't even know.
Intersecting identities, intersecting rainbow and faith.
But that's what they're putting on their bookmarks, right? These are for children.
Takatapui, rainbow Maori, asexual. Right. It's a real...
So are they really contributing to the well-being of people in New Zealand, or are they just serving themselves? All right. Okay. Acknowledging our funders. And I'll try and zoom in on this after the fact. But you can see a massive list of funders here. So everything from Auckland City Council to the Community Organisation Grant Scheme, councils, Foundation North, Lotteries Commission, Rainbow Charitable Trust, Te Whatu Ora, by the way, our health service, they fund them, Ministry of Youth Development, Tyndall Foundation, Mental Health Foundation, Wellington City Council. Then they've got logos of all their grant providers there and their donors, including things like Lego, the I Am Hope Foundation, which the government just gave $25 million to, so that's then going into this, the Lion Foundation, PPTA, so that's the Teachers Association of funding them. I mean, it's so bad when you start looking at the money.
Lottery Grants Board there as well.
Then they've got another list of sponsors and fundraisers, so that's a whole bunch of different companies as well, and then they've got individuals, and then they've got schools that have fundraised for them. So these would probably be the main ones that perhaps gave their money during Pride Week or out on the shelves. So you've got big schools there, Maclean's College, Dio,
Kings,
Mount Albert Grammar, Hobsonville Point, St Kitts, Katikati College, Hutt Valley,
Green Bay,
New Plymouth Girls High School. You know, like they've really wrapped everybody into this.
South Otago High School.
Isn't it nuts?
Wow.
So much money. I mean, like, you know, I compare it to the Little Let Kids Be Kids, which is genuinely parents who want to look after their own kids, and we don't get any of this. Not that I would want their money, but, you know, like this is just unbelievable. So, yeah, that's the kind of stuff we're up against. So that's Tabby, who got to be on the news, on One News. She got to have her say, saying poor marginalised group. They don't look very marginalised to me. They look like one of the most well-funded, well-resourced, well-staffed organisations in
not so
the
poor.
country. Not so poor, not so marginalised, because they have all the celebrations and parades and things like that. There was another lady that was involved in that interview, and her name was Tracy Cleland. So I'm just going to have a look at her. So Tracy Cleland, she, if you can remember back to the video, she said, well, how are kids going to learn about sex? And if they're not, the only place they're going to do it is porn. And she said that,
right. Yeah,
and she said that
yeah.
her students, because she's a teacher too, are asking for this information. So she's surveyed students who are saying we aren't getting enough sex ed from home, basically. So she advocates that it should be student-led. And I would say if we want student-led sex education, we have a problem with society.
Oh, that's an interesting take.
Well,
yeah,
they shouldn't be experienced in it. They shouldn't be telling adults what to do about it. This should very much be one of many topics that shouldn't be student-led. Because I know too, and I'm told that when students are surveyed on this, of course they're going to have a laugh and put silly things into the survey, right? You can't take a survey seriously that a kid has written out. So they're going to try and be edgy.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't. Why are they taking the kid's point of view really seriously, and why are they not listening to parents who have got problems with what they're dealing with at home from the fallout of this? No one seems to be wanting to hear that. We just get told that we're silly conservative and we're not progressive and we're out of touch, or we're the ones dealing with kids suiciding at home, not because they think they're trans, but because they've had their identities disrupted and there's nowhere to go for help. Or they're getting sexually violated by their peers because their peers have been shown really sexual stuff at school.
Yeah, that's some scary stuff.
It's some really scary stuff, right? And it's like, how is it that most people are still too afraid to have this conversation? What is it going to take? What is it going to take for people to step away from policy, to step away from the new so-called cultural norm, and actually be really brave on behalf of our children? If we are going to be okay about sexualizing our children and trying to let them be told by these strangers, and by the way, Tabby's no parent.
Funny how that works out. Usurping
parental authority, we have a real problem here. So Tracy Cleland, she's at the University of Canterbury, and her main areas of research are around health education and sex education, right? So she has got publications which includes Rangatahi Vision for Sexuality Education. Now, the main thing that I want to raise about her is that she was the project lead on a very concerning project called Beyond the Birds and the Bees. So Beyond the Birds and the Bees is an app for phones that was developed for 12-year-olds and up. But anyone who can download an app can download it. highly sexualised content endorsed by the Ministry of Education. So we've got a video where I talked about it with a lady called Liao a couple of years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, about this. But I just want to show you. So when you go to About on the beyondthebirdsandthebees.co.nz, you'll see her there, Tracy Cleland, Project Director. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I want to show you a little bit about what's in this. Start exploring. I can look at it without downloading the app. It's quite confronting. Don't let your kids watch this.
Okay.
Even though this app was developed for 12-year-olds who Tracy thinks kids should know this. She talked about consent. She talked about going, well, if we're not going to teach them it in class, they're going to get it through porn. And parents who are looking at this, I haven't come across a parent who doesn't think that this is porn. Okay?
Right.
So let's just have a look. So Tracy Cleland's work. Who am I? And then you go, oh, my gender and identity. So then they're starting to talk about gender and identity and just confusing kids. Now, this suite of videos we talk about a lot in Let Kids Be Kids. This is what Rodney Hyde talks about. This is what's landing in class, okay?
Yeah.
So it says gender identity is a person's understanding of their gender. Someone could be a boy or girl or neither or both. This is what they want kids to think is real. Gender identity labels. So right there, cisgender, trans, non-binary, agender. 12-year-olds, by the way.
Yeah, so if you were wondering as a parent where all this stuff came from, this is where it is.
Yep, and the Ministry of Education was endorsing this, and I don't know how many kids have it, but what I want to show, I'm not trying to promote it at all. I'm saying that that lady that ended up being interviewed on One News alongside me developed this, thinks that this is a great idea and what 12-year-olds, probably even younger, should know.
Right.
Is she the person that parents would think are developing sex education in New Zealand? She's got stuff about pronouns, so this is all the stuff that we really need to get rid of because it's all lies. Lots of stuff about trans. This isn't even the bad stuff, by the way. Let's go to the bad stuff.
Uh-oh.
First time for everything. Remembering that this is for 12-year-olds and up.
Dating and relationships. Kissing. Yeah.
Sex.
How to tell someone you like them.
Perhaps you're about to have sex for the first time in your life or the first time for a new partner. How do I know when I'm ready to have sex? What does sex mean to me? What will it feel like? How to talk about sex? What to do on dates? How to be intimate? Videos for lots of things, by the way. Undressing each other, okay? Then it's actually a sex guide, the how-tos of sex. How to talk about sex. Masturbation. Orgasm. Hot tips. What is an orgasm? Talking with your partners, plural. Foreplay. Fingering. Hand jobs. PIV sex. Do you know what PIV sex is?
No idea.
Penis in vagina.
Oh.
Like sex.
Sex. Okay.
They're now having to be specific because there's a whole lot of other types of sex that most parents don't know about or wouldn't feel that they need to tell their children about. Oral sex, anal sex, masturbation and masturbating with partners. And then they do the whole taking away male and female. What is an orgasm like if you have a penis? What is an orgasm like if you have a vulva, meaning if you're a man or if you're a woman, but they don't talk about that.
Right.
Reaching orgasm together. Remembering this was developed for students at school who were underage, for 12-year-olds, by this woman who's claimed as being an expert. And this is what she thinks that children need to know. And she will say it's because children are asking for it.
Wow.
It's unbelievable, right? I know.
Yeah.
So I just want to show you where else she is as well. People can go and look at that more themselves. We didn't want to play any of the videos. We actually just got sent this today. This is a school. It's like an alternative school. I think it's like a charter school. And they have groups of teachers called home-based learning advisors. And we just found, let's scroll down to it, there's a whole bunch of home-based learning advisors. So the school is called Aotawhiti, and it's based in Christchurch. Lo and behold, there she is, Tracy Cleland, the woman that thinks that the Beyond the Birds and the Bees Act was a necessary resource, is now a home-based learning support person. So she's talking about how she's really into mental health education and RSE and all of that. So anyone who's got kids at that school probably needs to know what her background really is. Special character school in Central Christchurch for all years, so year 1 to 13.
Right.
And then they have a cohort of teachers in there that are called home-based learners. We got sent it today because of a parent who has a child at that school sent this through. And I just sent something through, and I just picked up that the name on it was Tracy Cleland, who I was about to do this video on. And I was like, hang on. So she's actively in the education system teaching kids, but she's the woman who was the project lead on this horrific app that should be pulled down, and I believe the people that developed it should be criminally investigated. And then just on her as well, this is an Instagram from 2024, and this is her here, Tracy Cleland. Nerd Night Christchurch. It says, exciting news, Tracy Cleland is back for Nerd Night Christchurch. She'll share what young people can teach adults about better sex and relationships.
Right. Well, she's obviously entrenched.
Yeah. Join us to explore how nurturing joy and pleasure in intimate relationships can be learned from the younger generation. Now, in what sane world are adults learning about sex from children?
Yeah, and it's interesting too, like if you look at that, I'm just seeing it there, the association of the words Nerd Night Christchurch with sex education fascinates me, because you brought something up in the past where it was the kids who were disenfranchised, awkward, socially sort of inept kids.
Yep.
Well, they would really gravitate to Nerd Night. Cool, that's one way to get them.
That's one cohort of them that might go there. Yeah. So, yeah, that's right. I mean, I don't know what Nerd Night is. Maybe it's a youth group. What's sex ed doing in there? What is a woman who is saying that adults can learn about sex from children doing out in public at all, I would ask.
Yeah.
I mean, people might think this is a great idea. Go them. I haven't spoken to a parent about what I talk about that has children in school that thinks that this stuff is a great idea. So we need to get talking about it more. We need more people to talk about it. We need more parents to talk about it, because these so-called experts are ruling the roost at the moment.
Yeah, and excluding the parents so that there's no say from that side of things. Because I don't think parents are against having sex ed.
No.
I don't think that's the case at all. And I think that gives the wrong impression if you think that they are, or that the perspective that you're offering is really, 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 really conservative. I don't think that's the case at all.
I don't think it was historically the case. I think there's so little trust about what sex ed has become that parents are realising that actually don't send my kid to school to learn that at all, because sex ed is now sexuality ed, which is the side that Tabby was talking about.
Educating them to be trans.
To be trans. Yeah. And then you've got someone like Tracy who's not talking about that. She's talking about sexualising our children and saying that kids know better than adults about what they want to learn about sex. If you've got a kid learning how to drive, do you get them to teach the driving instructor?
Not as far as I can tell.
Yeah. If you've got someone who wants to learn physics, do you get the child to teach the physics teacher? I mean, when has it ever been a thing? They do this research to try and get there to be enough kids to say, yeah, we're not getting it at home. You know, what the parents are telling us at home is not adequate for what we are coming across online.
Yeah, sly way of justifying another input, another access point to pry their way in.
Yeah, whereas actually if the adults were really in charge, they'd go, gee, we've got a problem here. Our children are accessing porn. Can we shut the doorway to that? Because we know that porn affects people's brains, and once a child has accessed porn, they can't reclaim their innocence. There's data on that. We don't even need data on that. It's common sense, right? So yes, our children are accessing porn. They seem to be getting it thrown at them through sex ed. And I've always said 2 wrongs don't make a right here. Giving them graphic pornographic stuff isn't going to help them. You know, when the trans groups talk about the fact that their cohort of the population are suffering from mental health issues and are suffering from higher suicide, they blame people like us who are questioning them as the reason why those people suicided. And that is a crime in my book, because they're wanting to play the oppressor oppressed.
Yeah, it's a victim sort of mentality, isn't it?
But if you're going through this stuff, you're having challenges. You had your identity disrupted.
Yeah.
If this stuff had never come across, your mental health would be in a much better place.
Yeah.
It's so obvious to me what's going on here that it makes me cry sometimes, that you've got to keep explaining it and that people aren't picking up what we're putting down. Because our children are in distress. Our children are now saying they don't want it. And then you've got the Ministry of Education, you've got mainstream media, you've got these university researchers and all of these funded charities all saying their kids really want this stuff. And we have parents and kids saying we don't want this stuff. We don't want this stuff. The kids that they're targeting, like you say, they're actually targeting autistic and kids on the spectrum and things like that who just want to be love bombed. So they love bomb them with all the bright colours and all the cool things.
It makes me wonder a bit about what I said earlier about De Niro's kid.
A lot of the children of Hollywood people are being turned into the opposite to what their biological sex was. And that's really frightening because they're normalising it.
Yeah, it's a great way to get a reference point for
You
people
can't
who look up
change
to Hollywood
someone's
to go,
sex.
oh, this is what I'll do as well.
You can't change someone's sex.
No.
You know, and I've talked to someone in Canada who went through part of the procedure. They know they were a biological female.
Yeah.
They're not trying to kid themselves.
Yeah, it's so weird to me that you think you can actually change your sex.
Yeah.
It's just, sure, you might identify as something different, but you literally just cannot do it despite what you cut off, change and modify.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the animal kingdom, if you have a dog and you castrate them, you neuter them, they're still a boy. They're still a male. There is no possible way that you can change someone's sex, and we just have to stop pretending like questioning that and stating it as fact is harming them. They need a reality check, and they need to stop being funded. They need to stop being mollycoddled by the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Health. And I just want to actually throw one more thing up on this one. So the other person that was on that interview on TV1 was our Minister of Education, Erica Stanford.
Right.
Some would say that she's doing some things to help, but let's just have a little look at this video, shall we? That's Erica there in the tutu.
Oh, okay. That's her in the front.
In the Pride Parade with the national MPs. These are our national MPs. When are we going to have the adults back in the room?
Yeah, it's fascinating.
So you've got Te Pāti Māori, Greens and Labour who want graphic sexual education and sexuality stuff and all of the trans stuff in our education system. This is national, who show up at the Pride parades, and Erica Stanford, the Minister of Education, knowing that this is a controversial topic. This is 2025, this is February, knowing how controversial this topic is, knowing that children see this, actively not differentiating between a Pride parade that should be for adults and knowing that this stuff's getting thrust upon our children.
I see.
You've got David Seymour. He turns up to them as well. Winston Peters and New Zealand First MPs are the only MPs that don't seem to be supporting Pride. There's not many adults at the table having a conversation here. This stuff, this rainbow stuff, is not representative of families in New Zealand. Who is speaking up for families in New Zealand? The amount of news reports supporting Pride, the media doesn't represent the people of New Zealand. Who is representing the people of New Zealand? It's 5 million of us. Even the flawed census would show that this community is only a small number of people. We know they're not being marginalised because they're getting all the funding. Insanity?
Pandering to a voter base that they don't want to lose.
Yep. What are people going to do about it? So the first thing that I would like to say is the consultation for RSE framework feedback closes on May the 9th, and they are lobbying their groups to get lots of people to complete the consultation to say, our poor marginalised oppressed group, we really need to have this in. You can't cancel us. You You can't disappear us. That was what Doyle said. I'm not disappearing. We need parents to complete this feedback and get their voices heard, because as I have done this research over the last few years, I've realised that a lot of the money that goes into these charities they're using to lobby and be activists and raise their numbers. Well, parents weren't doing that because we were the ones holding up the economy. We were the ones running the country in as much as keeping the economy going. We're out there working. We're raising our children. We're holding down 2 jobs. We're out there working our butts off so that there's food on the table, so that the lights stay on. These people are out there being activists and campaigning, and now we have a battle on our hands, and we weren't even at the table. We were raising our kids. You know, I only found this out as my kids were tailing out of education, and then I'm realising there's parents coming in, they have no idea. They just trot their kids along to school thinking that it's all good because they're out there having to do the work. So parents, the one thing that you could do at a governmental point of view is to fill in the consultation and just put any kind of feedback you want in. Please go and look at our work and find some little tidbits of information there. And you can do other things too. So you can go to our resources page on the letkidsbekids.nz website, and we have a bunch of resources. So we've got things like a template for opting out of sex education. We have a notice of parental authority for parents that want to state their authority as far as not letting a child be medicalised, have interventions, or complete surveys at school. And what is important for upcoming month is we've got the Pride Week happening, which is that Inside Out organised event. And you can send, this is a templated letter where you can ask them if it's happening, and if it is, tell them who's behind it being Inside Out, and then tell them that you don't want it to happen. So we're just trying to create resources. We talk about them all the time, but there are just simple things that parents can do. You don't have to become an activist. You don't have to stand on a street corner. You can send an email in to the consultation. You can send an email to your teacher or principal. You could make an appointment to go along to the teacher and just sit with them and help them to understand what's going on. And if you're really brave, you could go and talk to your MP.
That's a lot. It's a lot you can do.
There's a lot people can do. Yeah. And if people can just listen to this and do something, talk to your children, tell your children that you love them, that they were born beautifully and perfectly, and everything is fine with them, because they're getting bombarded with messages that says that there's something wrong with them. And you're the one that can help to remember and remind them always that there was nothing wrong with them. They're fine as they are.
Oh, I love that. That's great advice.
That's one of the biggest pieces of advice is that we get from parents who have gone through this, who have managed to pull their kids back from the brink, or who haven't.
Right.
That's their advice. Tell your children every day that you love them.
Parents recognising that they've got kids that maybe have sort of awkwardness and lack a sense of self-esteem.
Or who are sucked into this. Because children believe what their teachers tell them. They don't know what the difference is between fact and ideology, right? They don't know the difference between education and indoctrination. And the messaging is being oppositional to parents, so they're already having the wedge built between themselves and their parent, and that all these other agencies and groups are going to love bomb them and their parents aren't, because they go home and say, well, I'm a trans-masculine, lesbian, transsexual, whatever they say, and the parent's like, what? And they're going, well, yeah, they said you'd say that. I'm going to go back and talk to my safety group.
Oh, that's a great trap, that one. Yeah. Give them a whole bunch of words they don't understand. Oh, yeah, they said you wouldn't understand.
And another thing is if you can find others in your school that you can have this conversation with to bring some awareness, and maybe you can have a watch night and watch some of our clips, or just grab some of our resources and just have a coffee. Most people are still struggling to have the conversation.
Right.
And find other people that aren't just going to shut them down and say, oh, you're just a transphobe, you're a hater. Like, that's how bad the programming is now.
Yeah. All right, well, thanks, Penny.
Thanks.